Artists bring light into our lives with words, music, and colors. When war came, this light had to be fought for, not just carried. Thus, a different rhythm of life and creativity was born. Artists, warriors of light. In 2014, I had just finished school. First, it was the occupation of Crimea, then the anti-terrorist operation. And then I realized the war has started. 8 years later, on February 24, 2022, the world for all Ukrainians has changed. I woke up from the explosions, ran to the window, and saw mushroom clouds on the horizon. They were bombing everything in sight. My ceiling cracked, there were several missiles whooshing above my head. It was freezing cold and I was barefoot, with barely any clothes on. I put a blanket on my head and ran to the cellar. I just looked at my phone and saw a bunch of text messages from my friends. A lot of news too. I realized that fighting was already underway, that the war had begun. It was my wife's birthday that day. We were abroad. I woke up earlier than usual to buy her flowers, but then I started reading the news and realized that was it. Since Russia attacked us, I had a strong urge to join the army. And I had made that decision long before February 24th. Before active fighting, we had been living in a world of illusions, in our own imaginary bubble. I couldn't imagine myself being a soldier. But when my homeland called me, I volunteered to join the military. And it didn't feel right to be just a guitar player anymore, so to speak. Serhiy Vasylyuk, call-sign Novoyar, is a Ukrainian musician, composer, songwriter, and lead vocalist of the folk rock band Тінь Сонця, Shadow of the Sun. His most famous songs include Kozaki, Cossacks, and Mechareya, the Sword of Ares.
Блиснув меч в люстрах небес, меча окропила покрова, а рік на рік його черкес. Разом рятуйтеся! На позір перунова полка підіймає Мечареєва рука. На могутній тут на захист нам, на погибель злим підступним ворогам.
His voice used to be heard at festivals, and now it is heard in dugouts. In March 2022, Serhiy volunteered for the armed forces of Ukraine.
Слава Україні, друзі! Радий вітати вас, український світ, з Харкова, з Хмельницької Салтівки.
You know, I don't regret spending the last 3 years in the military. I went through infantry, mortar battery and aerial reconnaissance. In some way, these were the best years of my life. I might even say it made me a man. I think there is a Cossack living in all of us. He had to be born not only on stage, but in real combat. Тінь Сонця, one of the Ukraine's most famous rock bands, has been performing for 26 years. The combination of folklore and heavy rock gave birth to their own style, Cossack rock. Serhiy's vocals and lyrics are the driving force behind the band's work. They are poetic, full of images of nature, symbols of Ukrainian culture and military spirit. His songs are about the power of words and truth in the voice. This extra folklore flavor emerged under the influence of true folk music. I wanted to represent Ukrainian music, sung in Ukrainian patriotic, but not tear-jerking, where everything is horrible, where luck is hard, etc. I wanted to show it from the opposite side, strong, confident music based on some notable pages of our history. The mission of my art was to create an alternative to Russian rock, which was too dominant at the time. We contrasted it with the Russian context and brought it into the present, so that we could head into the future with confidence. Perhaps we did accomplish a certain mission, because on the one hand we didn't sell out stadiums, but on the other hand a lot of fighters listened to Teen Sonce. Some of them started listening to Teen Sonce in 2014, while others have been shaped by our music since their childhood, and that's why they were the first to defend Ukraine in 2014. During his first missions, Serhiy realized that things that might get overlooked in normal life could save lives in war. For example, a reliable trench increases your chances of coming back alive. Once, 5 soldiers fit into my trench. We also had a javelin and some armor lying around. That's how spacious it was. You have to dig it almost to your height, or even better, exactly to your height. And then, somewhere halfway down, you have to dig a hole. At first, I dug a hole big enough for me to lie in the fetal position. And then I thought I could dig further so that I could stretch my legs. So I did that. There was any shelling, you would put on a bulletproof vest and lie down. And you know, I just covered my ears. That's the most reliable thing to do. Of course, I had headphones, but they were more for shooting that kind of thing. And when you cover your ears, all you hear is pff. Today, Serhiy splits his life between the front line and the stage, where he raises funds for his unit. Thus, music becomes action and applause becomes aid. Recently, the number of my charity concerts has increased, and thanks to this, the combat work of my unit, the Very Strike Drone Company, is improving. And in the 4th year of the war, in my opinion, this is a normal process. I have my own passion to raise more money, inspire people, and make my comrades happy, and they all treat me with respect too.
Твоя воля истоптана сірими волами. Почув козак та й полинув на бій з ворога, а ми почув козак та й полинув на бій з ворогами.
Each of our heroes came to their decisions in their own way, to protect their families, to save the innocent, to fight for a bright future for future generations, to prevent art from disappearing in the flames of war. And in the end, they all chose one thing: to join the battle. It didn't just click one day, it was a gradual realization that I had to join the army. I told my family that I'd definitely go. When you go to the recruitment center, and it doesn't matter where you've made that decision, at home or somewhere outside, but you've made it, and so you go to the recruitment center, receive your draft notice, and it's such a big deal. It's a very, very, very personal event. The most important thing is to find your place in the military and always be ready to arm yourself. I met these guys on the street and they asked me, do you want to join? And I said, well, I am not ashamed. I didn't hide, didn't run away, always tried to be useful. I knew my time would come one day. On the fourth day of war, I realized I had to do something, so we created a volunteering group. At first it was just me, then I invited my girls, and then people who used to come to us for help joined us as well, so our group was quite large. One day I had to ask myself what else I can do. And I realized that I'm not afraid of blood. I have some professional medical training and I can be useful. I can buy time for the guys so that they can get to proper doctors who will help them and save their lives. Irina Sereda, call sign Krada, is a Kiev-based film director who organized film crews and later ran a stabilization point. Before the war, Irina worked as an assistant director on films and TV series. Her creative resume includes Jack in London, Operative on Demand, Brothers in Blood, Three Roads and others. An assistant director is a person who regulates chaos. They have to manage all the chaos that's going on and coordinate all departments so that we can shoot a quality movie and allow both the director and cinematographer to focus on their creative work. With the start of the full-scale invasion, Irina became a volunteer. Her first trips were to the destroyed cities of Irpin and Bucha. After that, the front line. She brought the most necessary supplies there, everything to support the defenders on the front lines. We were delivering humanitarian aid to Hostomel. It was there that we experienced our first shelling by mortar fire. And for me, it was surreal, like a movie set. I didn't perceive it as something real. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. We had filmed many movies with shootouts and stuff like that. At first, I didn't understand it was all real. While visiting the front line, Irina realized that she wasn't afraid of blood, so she decided to enlist. With a basic medical education, she began to study tactical medicine. Her path to the army was not easy. However, today she is a combat medic in the Buravi brigade. My neighbor Natasha worked at a military unit. And I told her, Natasha, I've made up my mind, I'm ready for mobilization, but they won't take me. So she arranged an interview at the unit for me. Well, they didn't agree to draft me right away, but they invited me to talk to the unit commanders about my readiness for mobilization. So I went there, talked to a few people, and the 2nd Operational Battalion took me. 2 months after being mobilized, I was already in combat positions in Donbass and the Luhansk region. Irina worked at a stabilization point on the front line. Together with her brothers, in arms, we set up a stabilization post where administered first aid under persistent threat. She personally evacuated more than 300 wounded soldiers. For her, every person she saved was like stopping another wave of darkness. She helped everyone, but she was especially heartbroken for those with whom she shared a trench and a belief in life. They were evacuated from under fire. It was near the village of Ternashina in the Luhansk region. There was heavy fighting there. I remember both the first and second evacuations. We took the guys away, some of them were seriously wounded, but it wasn't my unit, and I was very worried, like, where are my guys? It was only on the 3rd trip that we rescued our own people. It was my platoon, the one I served in. Everything you've learned in peacetime takes on a different meaning on the front line. Organization, attention, the ability not to panic, everything becomes a weapon. Every talent becomes part of a collective force. Experience is transformed into action. Mastering chaos and the ability to organize. This probably helped me 90% of the time, apart from other things. The fact that you never panic, because there are always some unexpected situations on set, and you always solve them. So don't panic, be able to solve problems, understand how these problems can be solved, and general organization, as well as, I would say, my film connections. I discovered that everything you learn as an actor comes in handy in the military. Self-control, emotional state, body control and non-linear thinking. Theater actors, when on stage, are aware themselves both as a character and as a performer. They remember that their sword is made of cardboard and so they cannot strike with it because it will break. And that instead of wine there is water, there is an orchestra pit there, and there is light over there. So a million things to keep track of. And when you walk through the forest or a plantation, sneaking somewhere, you have to keep track of where the sounds are, where the movements are. Also, you have to look for tripwires. Remember that there are people behind you or in front of you. You also have a weapon and you must be aware at all times. In other words, this is a basic example of how the ability to keep many objects of attention in your head is simply spot on. When choosing landmarks, they should be clearly visible at different times of the year and throughout the day. That way you understand how the light falls and what catches your eye. First and foremost, it is analytical thinking. When we create, say, a literary work, especially in the genre of science fiction, fantasy or dystopia, we have to create a world that operates according to certain rules. And if these rules are not very realistic, not fully thought out, then the reader simply will not believe in this world and will not be able to respond emotionally. So this notion that you need to fully comprehend and analyze everything is very useful in the army. I am one of those people who, as they say, dive in head first. I can't do anything half-heartedly or burn at half intensity. I must do my best. Otherwise, why even bother? On stage, you always have to stay calm and cool-headed and pretend that everything is fine, even if you messed up. War is very similar. You have to act the same way. There was a drill where we needed to hit a fake drone with an AK. It's very hard, impossible even. You only have 20 rounds and you have to hit it. There were some guys who hit the bullseye every time in target practice. But there, they couldn't hit the drone even once. And then I go out there with my poor eyesight, put on my glasses and hit it 4 times. They asked me, how did you do that? I said, I'm a creative person, so I realized something wasn't working. I raised the crosshair slightly to the side, just a little bit. But they were trained to shoot below the target, so they emptied their whole magazines doing that. You see, a creative approach can be useful too. Serhiy Burbela, callsign Muzey, is an artist and soldier, long-time director of the Museum of Ukrainian Painting and deputy director at the Dnipro Art Museum. He has participated in numerous solo and group exhibitions in Ukraine and abroad. He gained international recognition for his series of paintings entitled Kerem, dedicated to Crimea. I really wanted to show Crimea from a different perspective to depict its historical aspect, all the peoples who lived there. I even signed all of my paintings with historical names. This was also a message to show that there was no Russian world and there will never be. Kerem was created before the occupation and since 2014 it has become the voice of memory and resistance. So his exhibitions took place all over Ukraine and even abroad. And while the artist is at war, his paintings are traveling around the world and telling our story. This is one big project, part of which was moved outside of Ukraine. And I'm grateful to my friends, Katerina Srebnitskaya in particular, who helps promote these projects. The exhibition Mariupol Unconquered, which travels together with my paintings and tells our European partners and audiences about the war. The exhibition Crimea 10 Years of Hope is currently on display in Lviv. It's been 11 years actually, because the project was created last year when it was still 10 years old. And there the images were accompanied by the lyrics of Crimean Tatar folk songs from Jamala's album Kirim. That's the combination I came up with. When the full-scale invasion began, Sergei and his wife were in Hamburg, but they came back to Ukraine. My wife and I were always going to return to Ukraine, by train or by bus, whatever it takes. But the traffic going in and the traffic going out obviously were two different things. Sometimes art can predict the events. Suddenly, paintings completely coincide with reality. The sinking of the cruiser Moskva by Ukrainian missiles, explosions on the Crimean Bridge and in Sevastopol Bay. Thus, the artist's work not only captures events, it articulates the expectations and hopes of Ukrainians. I just kept painting within my theme, but added certain elements that were close to my heart, some aspirations that I personally felt as a citizen, as did our entire nation. When this began to materialize in real life, I certainly did not expect it, but it was a pleasant surprise. The Ship is Gone is the name of the painting with a burning vessel near the Snake Island, just 1 month after it was painted in April 2022. Moskva, Russia's flagship, was sunk in real life. This was the first thing I thought about. I didn't have any materials, any paint yet, but I did have a huge desire. I just found some old canvas. It had, you know, some dirt on it, even some holes. So I nailed it on the wall and started painting all of that. I just wanted to let it all out. That wish of mine and all the entire Ukrainian people to make this ship disappear was realized in that painting. It was on March 20-something. You can check it out in my social accounts. They burned it on April 13 or 14, I think, and it was in Sevastopol Bay too. Even the number of ships matched. I could have made another stroke and it would have become just one of many ships. I have no idea how it works. Thank God, it does and it helps. We managed to sell these paintings and use the proceeds to help various brigades. Unfortunately, another painting, 21st Century Cave City, has also become a reality. In it, the artist depicted what he later saw with his own eyes, a residential building in Dnipro destroyed by a Russian missile. I had one symbolic painting with a destroyed building. Now you can apply it to any Ukrainian city and find some similarities. Like you can compare it to Peremogha, which is one of our residential areas. People asked me to explain what war was, what death was, or what my feelings were. And I then said that while you could find some words to describe it, it would be difficult to properly share my emotions and feelings with a person who hasn't experienced such emotions. We immediately jump into this topic about the role of art in shaping human consciousness. Because art shapes images, certain patterns, and models of how people live. The fight that's going on right now is not only for land, territory, state, and so on, but also for minds and intelligence. I think it's the war for a dream of Ukraine finally becoming what it was meant to be. The creative potential of Ukrainians has been unleashed recently. In wartime, this might be exactly what keeps us going. In fact, we survive with the help of creativity, ingenuity, and some unexpected solutions. When true masters work, they reveal the soul of their creation. For me, it's a song. For someone else, it might be photography. For others, it's painting. Art makes the world a better place to some degree. I don't mean it directly makes sunshine and rainbows, but rather it encourages reflection, or at least takes up our free time and distracts us, which helps quite a bit. Valentin Pospelov, call sign Sorokovy, is a writer turned soldier who wrote about the consequences of indifference. His work can be characterized as a sharp social dystopia. Valentin wrote his first novel, The Slaughter, at the age of 18. It depicts a bleak future world where human civilization is in decline, having chosen the path of political dictatorship and totalitarian ideology. Just before the start of the war, the first part of Valentin's book series, Trilogy of Northern Cities, was supposed to be released. Stockholm. We signed a contract in 2021 to release it in March 2022. We'd done a lot of work by that time. I was right in the thick of it. When reality turned out to be more gruesome than a thriller book, he left his fantasy worlds and focused on the real one. At first, Valentin was an active volunteer, but eventually decided to join the armed forces of Ukraine. I took the choice of specialty seriously and completed my training while still being a civilian. I also joined specialized unit that deals with specific activities, so it was entirely my decision, which I had thought through before signing the contract. The author creates a gloomy, cruel world where people pay the ultimate price for indifference, short-sightedness and consumerist thinking. Valentin adheres to principle of scare and warn to remind us that irresponsibility today will inevitably destroy our tomorrow. Indeed, all the books I write are quite gloomy and mainly concern the future. Therefore, this is undoubtedly a warning to society, to readers, and to the author himself that certain events, certain things, certain actions have consequences. And these consequences are mostly negative. So yes, it is a warning. Ukrainian society is the main character of my novels, almost all of them, at least as far as the trilogy of Northern Cities is concerned. In the real world, people don't really reflect much. They move chaotically through life and, given their cultural and biological characteristics, make certain decisions and then face certain consequences. One of my first thoughts when I woke up on February 24 was something like, I jinxed it. Because it seemed to me that it was more of a fantasy about Ukraine after the war. However, it turned out to be much closer than what's written in the books. In literature, we experience fear without consequences. In reality, it's the opposite. Ukrainian reality today is more striking than any fiction. And right now, our collective ending is being decided. Of course, reality is much harsher than books, because books are entertainment. They can be sad, they can be scary, they can be exciting, but they are still entertainment. In other words, we entertain the reader. Reality is obviously much more terrible in all its manifestations. I would say civil life today is more gruesome than what I describe in my books. And maybe when the war ends one day, then my books might become thrilling once again. But for now, the war is much more nerve-wracking. During the war in 2024, Oslo, the second book in the trilogy of Northern Cities, was published. It is a story about politics, magic, and the possible future of Ukraine in the 2030s and beyond. It pains me to admit that the main ideas of the trilogy were, unfortunately, confirmed by reality. I mean, back in 2022-23, I had some doubts. Perhaps I was looking in the wrong direction. But now, in the summer of 2025, the trilogy should be released just as I conceived it, because unfortunately it is the correct view of things. While Stockholm paints a bigger picture like a mosaic, Oslo, on the contrary, tells the story of very specific people. And the third part will definitely combine the two. It will be a hybrid between Stockholm and Oslo, combining the best and the worst from both stories. His writings are waiting for peacetime, but for now, the story is written on the front line. The war must end. It's very simple. There is no such thing as intermediate results. The outcome of the war may vary, of course, but until it ends, I have to remain in service. I am still a writer. It won't go anywhere. Even if I wanted to get rid of it somehow, I don't think I could. But obviously, now most of my time is taken up by military service. So that's what I have in my mind. The perception of war differs from its everyday reality, monotony, routine, extreme fatigue, and at the same time, complete concentration. War changes the pace of time and one's perception of oneself. War changes everyone, even if you don't see it with your own eyes, even if you are not on the front line, war changes everyone. I mean, here we are in Kiev, it's raining, cars are passing by, it's quiet, nothing's going on, and it seems like everything is fine. But at any moment there is a chance that a missile might hit this road right here and someone's going to die. War always involves maximum risks. But I don't regret any of my combat missions. I'm an introvert, I prefer being alone. I used to travel solo often, rarely with someone. Having a lot of people around is difficult. There is barely any personal space and you always solve people's problems, make orders, so it's really hard for me. Everything is fine. The only thing is that no one cares about what you did in the past. Here you are just a soldier. On the other hand, there might be some guy who didn't achieve much in his life, but here he might be a captain. When you fully realize that you fight for your country and your family, there can't be any compromise or unnecessary thoughts. I used to think that war was a never-ending action movie. Explosions, people running around, shooting guns. I mean, these things do happen, but most of the time it's a routine. It's related to certain aspects of everyday life. Someone's making tea, someone's busy with some other stuff, someone's eating, someone's sleeping. It's very monotonous. I haven't met a single bad person on the front line. The war exposed everyone, you know what I mean. Everyone expected Kiev in 3 days, but our ancient Ukrainian blood woke up and we didn't let them come here. So as long as we keep hanging on, as long as we have our farmer warrior spirit alive, as long as we can switch between a shovel and a gun and easily turn the very same shovel into a weapon, Ukraine is going to stand tall. Every day, everything we do is a step into the unknown. The military is full of surprises, so joining the fight is one thing. You learn how to shoot, drive and adjust different things. But I was shocked to find out that we need to wash our socks and uniform, sew, cook and make a bed. I didn't realize that war is a certain way of life. I think we are starting to collectively realize that there is no difference between civilians and soldiers anymore. We are all stuck here. Oleg Shulha, call-sign artist, is a film and theater actor who was in charge of an intelligence unit. Currently, he is serving in the 13th Arctic Combat Brigade. Oleg is famous for his roles in such movies as call-sign Banderas, Red, Dalbush and Volunteer, as well as his performances in various Dnipro theaters. I joined the theater in 1993. By 2014, I had been working there for 21 years. In 2014, Oleg's life did a complete 180. He left his acting job behind and became a volunteer, and in 2022 he became the head of his battalion's intelligence unit. The battalion intelligence officer is responsible for organizing intelligence, gathering information, analyzing it, and transmitting it to the battalion commander and chief of staff. The head of intelligence should really be a manager and deal with intelligence only, but I had to deal with training as well. Then I got my first car, and I basically drove all my guys to work. They flew around, gathered intelligence, and I analyzed it all myself, reporting the enemy's positions and targets to my superiors. In the end, I stayed in the 60th Brigade for a little over a year, but in that year, I managed to organize the work so that I had 4 groups that traveled independently, conducted reconnaissance, could independently correct and process information, and then they would simply give me a piece of paper with every new target that had been identified, all targets that had been confirmed, everything. We formed the groups on the fly. The head of intelligence did not actually do what was written in the charter, but he did everything he could to make intelligence work. In war, time breaks down into fragments. For Oleg, days became 1, minutes became years, and seconds became eternity. In this chaos, he saw for the first time the true weight of the years he had lived, and how war changes age. For a long time, I felt like I was 16 years old. Before I turned 30, I felt like 16. Then I grew up a little and suddenly felt like I was 25. I lived with that, and then, probably after turning 40, I felt like 35. Being directly involved in the war is a harsh reality. So I am 46 now. That's it. No more fluctuations. It's a weird thing. On the front lines, a person's reality is rebuilt from scratch. Who you were yesterday becomes just a piece of the puzzle. The past doesn't fade away. It becomes the foundation that supports your new reality. So I was meeting an unknown person for business. Hello, I am Vasil, and I am Petro. And I am Oleg Shulha. And here is the thing. In the past, I could simply say that Oleg Shulha is an actor, but now, how can I say I'm an actor when I haven't been acting for 3 years? I'm a soldier now, but if I say I'm a soldier, it's like deleting 30 years of my life. Sometimes small, insignificant things define our lives. On the front line, vigilance becomes instinctive and discipline becomes an unwritten law. Even a cherry pit leaves a trace, and any trace can become a trap. It's definitely a transformation. Actors can't leave anything unsaid because it becomes uneditable. Even a cigarette butt. Any trash you leave behind might be caught on camera, so it is uneditable. It's the same in the army. In 2015 I was getting into intelligence, and there I learned that you must leave no trace whatsoever. This is what Oleg's character from the movie Dalbush says about this. When you defend your land, no bullets can stop you. The fight between good and evil is much bigger than ours. The films I was involved in were aimed at making people realize that we are at war, to make them understand and finally wake up. Make them open their eyes and ears and realize that we're at war. We're at war. That's why the image of defenders was important to me. In this film, it's a small group of people. They defend their land, they believe in their path, in their choice they've made. That was very important to me. But in my opinion, everyone should have realized it by now. The past always walks alongside us like a shadow on the wall, a breath we can barely hear. It preserves the steps we have taken and the choices that can no longer be corrected. In war, this whisper becomes thunder. It's the law of life. You can't turn back the clock by 1, 2, 3, 10 years. You can't become who you used to be, but you can be better. I rewatch movies that I'm in. Maybe because I do it so often, I'm still able to find new layers in them. I'm thankful to destiny for all the job opportunities I've had. And I'm thankful to all the people I've worked with. Zaza Bualtze, Artem Seidablayev, Taras Dron, Oles Sanin. That period of my life was a blessing. I mean, I look back at it now and I think to myself, God, I was a lucky man. Maybe one day I'm going to look back at today and think the same. Art is not born in silence. It's made out of life itself, from happiness, pain, light and shadows. The war has not rewritten human fates. It has changed the language of art. On the front lines, colors are louder, words carry the weight of loss, and music sounds as if it breathes for those who have fallen silent. Here, art becomes a shield against oblivion. One day, I would like to make a movie or a TV series about combat medics. I started as a platoon combat medic myself, served at the front lines, then became a company medic during evacuations, and now I am a regiment medical instructor. I know how important and difficult this work is. I would like to highlight the heroic work of platoon medics in particular, people who, for the most part, have no medical training but save lives every day. I dream a lot, make up some projects in my head, and read some more fictions or dramatic works. You know, I am very lucky because you can find a lot of interesting people in the army right now. I found a great author and artist, Valery Puzik, and I managed to infect him with a certain idea, and now he is writing a play. But all these wishes and all this powerful energy exist here and now. And if you reach the point where they say, okay, let's make a play, I don't know if I'll have the strength to do it in such uncomfortable conditions, while serving in some squad during the war. Right now I'm thinking, God, when this is over, I'll go back to my normal job. But honestly, I don't know what it will be like when I get back there. I can't write at my full capacity at the moment. I feel that if I were to write a book, I'd be in my study writing, walking around and contemplating. But I cannot allow that right now. When the war broke out, I stopped singing completely. I lost my voice. My soul couldn't sing, only cry, get it? I may sing and immediately start crying, but I don't want to be negative all the time. We are Ukrainians after all, smiling is what we do, against all foes, against all odds. The war may have made it very difficult for me to write. During the full-scale invasion, I wrote only one text. War has a very strong egregore. a symphony of feelings, energy, and so on. I've had some ideas. I'm always making notes or sketching. You know, the training ground looks a lot like a seashore. The sand, especially when it's windy, and you look into the distance and imagine the sea and ships, everything is fine, especially when the sun is shining. These are moments like this. Or you might look for some patterns in the targets. It's quite interesting, like some kind of a visual game. I've experienced some conflicting emotions, like for example you see a beautiful wheat field during the sunset, and right in the middle of the field there is a rat shell sticking out or the field is on fire. The mission of our art is basically to show the masses what's going on. Everyone wants some kind of victory, but right now we cannot imagine what's going to be like. Many people saw that my paintings had become reality, and they were like, "Why don't you draw our victory after all?" However, I don't do these things intentionally. Unfortunately, I have no idea what it's going to look like, so I can't paint it yet. We should think about art as a form of defense. We need to think about what we should show people. For example, we need to show our foreign partners what is happening and through the prism of art, engage them in helping us so that they see what the world is losing. And it's losing artists, it's losing engineers, it's losing teachers, people from completely different fields. These people are true role models for many, both in terms of their work and current state. I don't want to write about war. I have too many projects that I'd like to complete first. Plenty of ideas. And I don't want my books to be about this war. No, thanks. I've seen too much, so I don't want to deal with it. Because I want to forget about it. It's impossible to do so. I just want to share something different. With the help of different tools, through different emotions. I'd like to shape people's perception of this war, of our soldiers' bravery, through slightly different things. We should make a comparative exhibition, like here's how incredible the Donetsk region used to look, or here is how amazing Ukraine used to be, and here is what's going on there now. Perhaps such comparisons will help people better differentiate between good and evil that we talked about earlier, and give them a sneak peek at what we might lose. Because everything that surrounds us gives us life. It makes us human and allows us to live. Dmitro Bolkhovitin, call-sign Nikon, is a photographer whose award-winning pictures capture the light of the Donetsk region. His favorite genre is landscape. His photos have become the trademark of the region. They can be seen on post stamps, exhibition posters, and magazine covers. In 2013, Dmitro was named Ukraine's best landscape photographer. In 2019, Ukrpochta issued a series of stamps entitled The Beauty and Grandeur of Ukraine, featuring his photographs of the Donetsk region. Donbass is my homeland, which I love to death. I miss being able to travel and explore various corners of the Donetsk region. But I keep it in my head, in my photographs. War destroys everything. It destroys nature, whether it's explosions or the protective fortifications that people build. I have no idea if anything's going to remain there at all. What I saw cannot even be described as horrible. It doesn't convey everything that is happening now, because judging by the plantations where I spent a lot of time, they are nothing but tree trunks now. Anywhere you go, if you look at the field from above, everything around our combat positions is covered in craters from explosions, and it's like that everywhere. The day after the full-scale invasion, Dmytro joined the Ukrainian army. He led a rifle platoon of the Donetsk Regional Territorial Defense and held positions near Slovyansk, Svetohirsk and Limon for 3 years. He had to put his camera aside and his art on hold while he defended the land he once filmed. Managing a unit doesn't go hand in hand with photography. You can't get distracted. Because you are responsible for people, for their lives, I tried to film some everyday situations on my phone, but I didn't carry a camera, because you already have so much to carry, like armor, ammunition, etc. So I thought it would be both hard and inappropriate to take a camera with me. During critical moments, our brain functions rationally. At least, that is how it worked for me. I was in the moment, understood where I was, what decisions I had to make, and what depended on me. This is probably the effect of adrenaline and circumstances. After that episode, you remain in a state of tension for a long time. It seems that everything is fine, but when the adrenaline wears off, you begin to feel everything and realize what has happened to you. Then it helps to remember why you went to the military and what you are fighting for in the first place. After 3 years of service, Dmytro returned home due to health issues. It seemed that the war was behind him, but it echoes in his memories and dreams in the silence that suddenly reminds him of the front line. You can escape the battlefield, but you cannot escape the war within you. I can't say I am fully back. I am trying to. I reminisce about the war often. I think and dream about it regularly. Talking to my comrades all the time. I'm not used to it yet. In 2023, Dmytro released a book of photographs entitled The Donetsk Region Around the Beauty, which contains over 300 photos of the region taken over a 15-year period. The idea behind the album is to show the Donetsk region as it is, as I saw it for the first time. I wanted to get as many people as possible to see this book, including displaced persons from the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. That's why I looked for places like Little Mariupol, so I could simply give this book away as a gift, and people could come to this place and see their homeland. This album wasn't born in a cozy studio or quiet workshop. It was literally created where life and death clash against each other every day, in cold trenches among the thunderous roar of warfare. I simply gathered as many of my photos of Donetsk Oblast as possible and gave them to my friends. They compiled them into an album. When I returned to the army, I carried out combat missions, and in my free time I was lying in a dugout and looking through the PDF file that my friends had made. I edited and added a lot, and in total it took me about 3 or 4 months. At the time, Dmytro was simply doing his job. Only later did he realize that what he had done had become part of history, his own personal history and that of the entire country. Almost all of the territories in this photo are currently occupied. There is no access to them, and we don't know what's going on there. We had to show what the Donetsk region which we are fighting for looks like, because it is a part of Ukraine. And in this sense we are fighting for Ukraine as a whole. If you come close to the front line, you will see black smoke everywhere. Black columns of smoke rising from all directions. Spoiled tips, villages, forests, plantations. Black smoke everywhere. Every character in this movie has a place where not only memories come alive, but an entire life. Dmitro gave the interview in Kramatorsk, in his native Donetsk region. His family lived here for a long time. Serhiy Vasylyuk showed us his hometown where he grew up. Irina shared her story near the Karpenko-Kary Kiev National University, where she studied to become a director. Serhiy Burbela returned to Hudozhny Lane by the Museum of Ukrainian Painting, the place where he'd worked for many years. Valentin chose the Botanical Garden in Kiev, a quiet shelter in the busy city. Oleg went to the Yavornitsky Museum, where he once worked as a janitor. For Natalia, the same museum is a memorial that keeps her spirit alive. This is Dmitro Yavornitsky National Historical Museum, and for any folklore expert like me, this place is almost sacred. Natalia Bratchik, call-sign Seva, is a living legend of the Dnipro region, the voice of Ukrainian steppes.
Туман, туман, придолині, широкий лес.
She is an art historian, ethnographer, renowned singer, and cultural expert who has collected 1,500 samples of Ukrainian folklore and trained several generations of singers, teaching them to feel the profound power of Ukrainian tradition. She is also the founder and director of the Radoslav Folk and Ritual Theatre in Dnipro. Our group is truly one of the best there is, because we sing a cappella without musical accompaniment. I collected songs. Sometimes the children brought songs they had heard from their grandmothers. We sang them in their original form as they should be sung. Before the war, this was my whole life. It was my brainchild. At first, I only taught children, but then their mothers, grandmothers, uncles and aunts came as well. Then my former students grew up, had children of their own and brought them to me. In the end, we really became one big family. We had 7 couples who married each other. And all the children were raised to be patriotic. They were raised in our spirit, you know, the spirit of loving their homeland. Many of our boys are fighting in the war. Some have died. Even before the war, Radoslav was well known in Ukraine and beyond. The group had multiple European tours, where Ukrainian songs sounded particularly resonant. Singing is something incredible. If you sing correctly and clearly, utilizing the folk methods, it truly becomes divine, in my opinion. Singing heals. You feel uplifted and you want to share this feeling with more people. And the more you give, the more you receive. It makes you feel like you are in heaven. From the very beginning of the war, Natalia and her group mates became involved in volunteer work. They had to operate in difficult conditions, with limited resources, under constant threat of danger, and without heating in severe cold. This forced them to be resourceful. We've discovered a nifty life hack. If you take 2 memorial candles, and we had a few boxes of them, light them up and put them in your pockets, you can warm your hands. You can even put one under your clothes. Then you're not freezing so much. And if it's -9 or 11 degrees inside, we put our hands on memorial lamps. So we sit there in the dark and sing all night long.
Умови. Оце наше обігрівання. От, у нас темно, світла немає. Оце ми займаємося так. У нас тут заняття йдуть у шубах. і при свічках. Це наш обогріватель. Гріємося ось так руками, тримаємо свічки, тоді нам не так холодно.
Natalia is now a senior tactical medicine instructor and head of the department. Her new mission is to save lives. A few months after the war began, we had a visit from an organization called the International Medical Corps. I'm proud that their professors taught me. I simply believe it is necessary to help your people. I learned everything I could. I took one course, then another in various fields. Then I took training courses. As soon as I met someone who can teach me something really useful and important, I immediately go and learn. If it costs money, I invest my own and learn. Because once I know how to do something, I can teach others so they can save lives. This is my contribution, but I still think I'm not doing enough. Natalia also teaches children how to behave in extreme conditions, how to stay calm and save themselves. Because for her it is important not only to help, but also provide the future generation with knowledge that can save lives. The primary concept behind this camp is to provide children with a breather from the stressful living conditions of our cities. The children here are not only from Dnipro, but also from Zaporizhia, Pokrovsk, Nikopol, and various regions where they constantly witness active warfare because they live there. These children are constantly confronted with death, blood, and injuries. They need to know how to act in such situations. We teach them how to survive in any conditions, how to purify any swamp water and make it safe to drink, how to light a fire from scratch. They must learn this. After that, we teach them to provide medical assistance to each other, which is basically first aid, but it is mixed with tactical medicine because children also study tactics as well. Children don't talk about toys, they don't talk about their toy planes or whatever they like to play with. They play, but all their toys are the ones that shoot. Children talk about Shahad drones. We hear a drone, yeah, there it goes, and they start talking about what kind of Shahad it might be. There's one or that one. We hear the sound of air defense, and the children can immediately tell the direction it came from, where the Shahad is, where the fighter jet is, where everything is. They learn to react instantly and distinguish real danger from something that is passing by, and this really sets them apart. They think about how to survive, not just how to laugh. But my goal is to teach children not just to be friends, because that's probably not quite the right word. My goal is to teach them to be brothers and sisters, to support each other. We have different kids, some from orphanages and many others who lost their parents in the war. You see, children come in all spheres and sizes, nervous, angry, one has some issues, another has a hard time in the orphanage, and from all this you have to gather those who then leave and cry all the way in the van, saying, "Let's go back." According to Natalia, only one thing matters: to be useful to people. It doesn't matter where you devote your energy, under the stage lights or in the middle of a field, because the true value of any endeavor is measured by how much good it does. I teach civilians. I usually have 20 to 50 people there. I teach soldiers too if they invite me. And when after several long hours we finally finish the course, I usually conclude by saying, "That's it, thank you for coming, you've learned a lot today, but I pray to God that you never have to use it." And you know, people applaud me. When it happened for the first time, I was a little surprised because I was used to receiving applause on stage. But when you teach tactical medicine to civilians or soldiers and then they applaud you, you think maybe I got a little carried away. So probably not. What differences does it make where you get applauded? That's what's important. Since the beginning of the war, Natalia has hardly sung at all. So when we asked her to do it, she was momentarily confused and doubted whether she could. Would she have enough strength for her voice to break through the silence and pain? I haven't sung for a while. The last time I did was 2 years ago. So excuse me if I fail.
Чорна рілля і зорана, гей, гей, гей. Чорна рілля і зорана, ще й кулями засіяна. Гей, гей, ще й кулями засіяна. Гей, лежить козак на купині. Гей, гей, гей.
The film is dedicated to the memory of Ukrainian actor Yakov Tkachenko, who was supposed to be one of the characters in this film, but unfortunately, the war claimed his life before we could make it happen.
Китаєчко южне вкритий. Гей.
Yakov Tkachenko is a Ukrainian theater and film actor. He was known for his brilliant performances in such movies as Dovbush, The Disgraced Zoths, Propitny, The Price of Truth, and many others. After the full-scale invasion, he left the stage and chose to defend his homeland. He fought near Vuhledar. He was seriously wounded, but despite his concussion, he returned to the front line. For a brief moment, the war allowed him to do what he loves one more time, as in 2023 he briefly returned to acting. But in September 2024, he volunteered to serve again. On December 10, 2024, Yakov Tkachenko died on the front line. Yakov is an extreme example of a human. He was discharged and had every right to stay home, but he couldn't resist going back to the front line. He joined the army twice or even 3 times. We lose our best people in terms of their human qualities. That's just how it is. You're together 24/7. You eat from the same plate, drink from the same bottle. You realized it's your brother in arms. It's a hard, painful topic. We've just buried one of our guys. He had a little daughter, just a few months old. It's just when you raise someone from an early age, you treat them like your own children, and then they are gone. When actors die, they probably move to another level. They're actors no more. They are like any other person now, because everyone dies the same way. Maybe they join some kind of heavenly army. For me, it's a way out, a step forward. Every month, an artist dies in the war. War takes more than lives. It gradually depletes Ukraine's gene pool, the people who created knowledge, culture, and technology. These are not just numbers. These are destroyed families, unfinished books, unpainted paintings. Among the dead and wounded are specialists, teachers, doctors, engineers, artists, and many others. But for each of them, it was a conscious choice. They cannot stay behind, knowing that the future of their land is being decided. They've chosen to move forward, risking everything, so that tomorrow there will be someone to paint, write, heal, and teach. This pain is not only about loss, it is also about faith, because even a wounded culture can be reborn, and new choices will grow among the ruins. But the price we're paying today is extremely high. So the memory of those who have passed away will become a foundation for those who continue to create. Unfortunately, there is no war without losses. The ones who remember the most, without a doubt, are superhumans. Extremely motivated, ready to go all the way. Of course, they got exhausted. It's hard to talk about it. However, my personal belief is that they become our guardian angels. And of course, we will always remember them. We don't know what awaits an artist in the end. I mean, we're talking about things that we unfortunately cannot comprehend while we are still in this world. We can only believe in something. They did everything they could, everything. Now we are on our own.